11% of all Americans are struggling with the complexities of the disease diabetes. Many are overwhelmed of the day-to-day tasks in managing this disease. Today we have with us Dr. David Calder, the author of The Diabetes Office Visit in eBook, paperback, iPhone application, and iPad application. Good morning, Dr. Calder.
Good morning.
You mentioned earlier that diabetes is nothing but a numbers game. Can you elaborate?
Sure. Diabetes, as we discussed, is a complex disease, but it can be broken down into simpler components. Let's take a look at the Diabetes Office Visit app and discuss this a little further. Let's start by opening the Diabetes Office Visit by tapping on the little green icon. This will take us to the last page I visited previously. I'd like to go back to a page in the book, and it's a little easier to see the icons. By touching the bottom of the page, it'll show 3 icons across the bottom, and this one My Diary icon at the top. I'd like for us to visit the goal setting portion first, and it's the little icon to the left side. And by touching that, it'll take us to goal setting. This section is divided into 2 parts. Blood sugar goals. This is the sugar test done before meals and at bedtime, and sometimes at 3 a.m. You'll notice the grayed out area. This is recommended targets. Your target goals may be different, and it's very easy to change those. I've changed this one to 80 to 130, just as an example. Let's go down to the exam goals to further demonstrate the ability to change these lab values. The thing about tests having to do with diabetes is that they're all very individual. And so the test that might be good for your neighbor might not be the best test result for you. So these are all very individual, so it would be necessary to change them. The goals that are set are sometimes based on the age of the person and the risk involved, or they're just their general life situation and what they can handle at that time. Let's look at A1C hemoglobin. The recommended target goal for that is 7. Perhaps your doctor may say, gee, for the time being, I'd like to have that target goal at 8. It's very easy to change that. And we can change any of these target goals to match the targets that you and your physician agree that are the most important for you at that time. By setting these target goals, you've simplified your diabetes care. If you have any test that's not meeting that target goal, that's a reason to discuss that with your physician. It's very easy to do. You get your lab test back, and perhaps your LDL cholesterol comes back at 103. Your target goal is 70. Then it's time to talk to your doctor. And it's very simple. You go in and say, Doc, you and I agreed to have an LDL of 70. I'm 103 on my last test. Can you help me fix that? And by that simple statement, you've set the motion in action that will get that corrected. Your doctor will do everything in his power to help you fix that. You can do that with each one of these items. The other thing about this is that in addition to simplifying office visit, it puts you somewhat in the driver's seat of managing your diabetes. Each of these tests can be handled in the same way. On the foot exam and the eye examination, it's simply putting in the date to remind you when to have it done next. I want to mention one thing. Wayne Gretzky made a statement years ago that you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. In diabetes, you fail to achieve 100% of the targets you don't set. So I'd like for everybody to think about that and set target goals. I'd like to go to the companion portion to this now. We'll go to My Diary, and part of the My Diary section is your daily glucose log, which we won't look at right now. I want to look at risk factors. And let's first just look at the blank sheet. This is essentially a sheet similar to the goal-setting sheet where you enter your lab data.
Now, you would only have to enter your lab results in one time, and they would show up in all the associated areas, correct?
That's right. If we go back, for example, I had a wellness exam in 2010. Basically, it said I had a diabetes wellness exam, the date was given, the blood pressure, each of the lab tests are recorded. And it's very important to realize if any tests on these lab tests that aren't meeting the goals that we discussed earlier is a reason for discussion with your doctor. So it really does simplify the approach just by trying to hit those 10 targets. In addition to being able to add these tests, you can add other tests. A lot of people like to follow their thyroid test, and that's very easily added to this added user data. I like following my ApoB level, which is a way of counting LDL particles, and mine is 74. Some people like to follow their thyroid test called a TSH, but you can add any test to this section just by simply tapping it and typing it in. Let's go back to the daily diary and look at the daily log. This is your daily glucose measurement section. And you'll notice that it has breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And this is bedtime sometime out here. Pretty standard, but also there's a clock here that has the time of day. And this is important for shift workers because their breakfast may be at 9 p.m. or it may be at 6 p.m. in the evening. So hopefully this will help shift workers do a little better job at tracking their data. When looking at glucose results, most of the time you want to record things in a fashion that will allow your physician and you to see patterns. If you'll notice, the sugars went up a little bit here in the morning before breakfast, but during the day they were hitting it pretty much in the target range except for this result. I can show other factors that influence my glucose results. I can show carbohydrate intake, or I can, by touching the little plus sign in the upper corner, I can add medications. I normally take glucophage. I check that, hit save, and that medication will show up on the screen. This is true for each of these tests. I can add exercise, I can add my meals. Let's put carbohydrates in, for example. 60 grams, let's say that I ate. Very easy to put that in, and it's saved. Another point about this, if we look at medications, I've included all of the various insulins, oral medications, and other medications such as Byetta and some of the newer drugs. Now, there's also in each one of these sections another category for adding medicines that have not quite come on the market yet. But each time you check a medicine and put the dose in, it'll go back to your daily record for your medications. You notice that some of these are recorded in different colors. If you have a problem with things getting a little bit too cluttered on this, it's quite easy to remove any of the items by just touching delete. And you can clear up your chart if it starts looking a little bit messy for you.
Now, you mentioned earlier that these are very easy to email to your doctor. Can you display that function?
Sure. There's two ways to show this screen. One way is to take a snapshot by pressing the home button and the on-off button at the same time. It takes a quick snapshot of exactly what you're looking at. That goes into your photo album and it can be emailed to anyone you want. Another way of doing this is to go to the share, and it puts in dates, and you can choose any date you want to send any records that you want. This is primarily used for insurance companies. Sometimes they like to know how many glucose tests you're doing.
So you can
month.
send a time frame of a start date and an end date.
You can choose any date you want.
Of all the levels that you have recorded since the commencement of recording.
That's right. Let's go to one other function, the book. There's an eBook that comes with this. And by tapping the bottom of the sheet, it'll allow you to go to the middle icon, which takes you to the table of contents. It's possible to scan the table of contents, and if you want to know a little bit more about A1C hemoglobin, so what does the A1C hemoglobin mean? And I've tried to include not only what the test means, but how the target goals for that test were arrived at and what that means. Easy to turn a page as you read through the book. If you want to go back, you can go back to the previous page quite easily. If you can't remember what your target goals are, it's quite easy to hit the target icon, go back, and you can see what your target goals were. And then quickly go back and start reading again. Basically, that is the Diabetes Office Visit app. It's quite easy to use. And I have to point out, this is not only just for people with diabetes, but people with prediabetes. They have some of the same risk that that a person with diabetes has, and for someone without diabetes, we all are at risk of cardiovascular disease. So we all need to know what our LDL cholesterol and our blood pressure is. It's very important we all track our lab. It's easily done with the Diabetes Office Visit app.
So this sounds like something that anyone can benefit from, whether you have diabetes or not. For more information, you can contact Dr. Calder at dcalder@diabetesofficevisit.com or visit his website at www.diabetesofficevisit.com.